Jared Kushner appears to have cashed in on his time in the White House with a $2 billion investment from none other than Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman.
The kingdom would be taking on the bulk of the investment and the risk. There was a seemingly excessive asset management fee and public relations risks due to Kushner's involvement.
Unanimously, the United States Senate has said that Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman is responsible for the murder of Jamal Khashoggi.
One man leaves the White House, another man, a crown prince, opens his checkbook. $2 billion changes hands. And according to insiders, Kushner's fund is 99% backed by foreign governments. That's not just a red flag, it's a whole marching band of them. Today we're breaking down why even Supreme Court eyes are reportedly glued to this one, and why lawmakers are screaming for an investigation before foreign cash starts making US policy decisions. Before we move on, I will like you to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Imagine leaving your job on a Friday and waking up Saturday morning to find $2 billion in your account. No, you didn't suddenly invent a cure for baldness or win a jackpot the size of Texas. In this case, it's not a lottery, it's from Saudi Arabia, and the recipient wasn't some hot shot in Silicon Valley. It was Jared Kushner, who had just strolled out of the White House days earlier. That's one heck of a severance package. Most people get a signed card and a cake from Costco. Kushner got a wire transfer that could buy several small countries.
A $2 billion investment that former President Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, secured last summer from a fund led by the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. The New York Times reported some of the group's concerns. The private equity firm was found to be, quote, unsatisfactory in all aspects. Kushner's private equity firm secured the investment after Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman overruled a host of objections from the sovereign wealth fund's advisors.
This wasn't just any money. It came from the Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund, overseen directly by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, MBS to his friends, and apparently to Kushner. The investment went into Kushner's brand new private equity firm, Affinity Partners. Brand new is key here, because before this, Kushner had zero history running an investment fund. You might think sovereign wealth funds want experienced managers with proven returns. You'd be correct, except here, the normal rules seem to vanish into thin air. In fact, reports say the advisors inside that Saudi fund looked at this proposal and basically waved a big red flag. They said it was too risky, that Kushner's people lacked experience, and that the fees he wanted were well above market standards. A normal process would end there with a polite no, but in this case, MBS himself stepped in and pushed it through anyway. If you've ever had a boss override the finance department, you know it usually means one of two things: the deal's personal, or someone's owed a favor, or both.
Jeff Bennett explores the close relationship between Kushner, the Trump administration, and the Crown Prince that helped shape the deal.
Kushner being able to exploit his access to the president, his power within the Trump administration.
Is there a role for DOJ or Congress or any entity to look into this, to scrub this?
I think there's a question that the Department of Justice should take a really hard look.
I don't know what the administration's waiting for in terms of accountability.
I believe that there's a report that they're working on. They've been doing an investigation, and when they have the facts of the investigation, then it'll be up to the president to make a determination on what he wants to do.
And here's where the backstory makes eyebrows shoot up. While in the White House, Kushner didn't just sip tea with MBS here and there. He played a central role in brokering that massive $110 billion US Saudi arms deal. You remember the photo op, Trump grinning with a sword like he was cutting a wedding cake that could blow up a city. Deals like that cemented ties between Kushner and the Saudi leadership. So when a check for $2 billion lands in his lap right after he leaves office, the list of possible explanations starts to narrow real quick. Private equity funds usually raise money from many different sources: banks, pensions, wealthy investors, spreading the risk and showing broad confidence in the project. What Kushner got was the opposite. Almost the entire starting pot came from one place, one decision maker, one government. It's like starting a lemonade stand and having a single billionaire buy all your lemons for the next decade before you've squeezed a drop. Not impossible, but not exactly the industry norm. Even in the high-rolling world of sovereign wealth funds, those giant pools of state-owned investments, overriding your own financial experts is rare. These funds are supposed to watch every cent like it's their grandmother's life savings. If advisors warn against something, leaders tend to listen. The rush to approve Kushner's request despite those warnings wasn't just unusual, it was the kind of thing that, if it were a movie plot, your friend would say, a little too obvious. So was this just MBS believing in Kushner's untapped financial genius? Or was it about keeping a well-connected political ally happy and close? Because $2 billion isn't let's try this and see. It's we're very sure we want you in our corner. And given the timing, right after Kushner's White House exit, it raises tough questions about whether this was a business deal or a thank you card written in oil money.
Say it's not because of his track record in private equity, because he doesn't have one. What I reported in my Substack newsletter this week, Vicky Ward Investigates, from where he went on to do a lot of things, including the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, the roundup at the Ritz-Carlton, the blockade of Qatar, where the United States has our airbase, evidence in legal papers that Jared Kushner and MBS were discussing the fact that there was a problem around MBS succeeding in Saudi Arabia because the US intelligence agency backed his cousin.
I mean, Trump talked about draining the swamp, and we have a swamp monster in this story.
Ethics watchdogs and national security folks look at all this and see flashing alarms. The overlap between Kushner's role in shaping US policy towards Saudi Arabia and his sudden jackpot funded by the same government is the definition of a conflict of interest. Even for Washington, where blurred lines are basically a decorating theme, this one sets new records for audacity. But here's the thing, this story doesn't stop with the transfer, because taking the money was just the beginning. The real storm comes when you see what Kushner has allegedly been up to while holding that Saudi cash, and how it might be reaching right back into US politics without anyone casting a vote. What's worse than a foreign-funded businessman? Try one who might also be playing secret ambassador without telling anyone. That's the picture some lawmakers say is forming around Jared Kushner, and over in Congress, a couple of big names are saying enough is enough. Senator Ron Wyden and Representative Jamie Raskin aren't talking about writing him a stern letter. They're calling for the Department of Justice to investigate him over his foreign money ties. And not just because of that $2 billion from MBS. They think he's still in deep with the same foreign leaders he worked with when he had an actual White House badge. The worry is that Kushner isn't just some ex-official running a business now. The allegations say he's still talking with Trump on political matters, still whispering with MBS like they're old roommates, and still taking money from the same governments he made deals with in office. That's not just awkward, it's potentially illegal if parts of it are true, because there's this thing called FARA, the Foreign Agents Registration Act. It says if you're working in any way as a political agent for another country, you have to register and be transparent about it. Kushner so far hasn't. FARA isn't some dusty law no one enforces. People have actually been busted for ignoring it. The allegations here go like this. Kushner is essentially on the Saudi payroll through his fund while consulting in some capacity with both Trump and MBS. That's like coaching two rival football teams at once while your salary comes from one of the team's owners. Transparent? Not even close. Legal? That's the question Wyden and Raskin want answered. If this counts as diplomacy in Jared's world, it's not in the State Department's conference room. It's the yacht version. Quiet talks over Wi-Fi with caviar and a view. No press pool, no official briefings, and definitely no paper trail the public gets to see. That's the kind of setup where policy can shift without voters even realizing who moved the pieces. You don't have to squint to see how this could be a problem. MBS is not handing over billions for charity. These are investments tied to influence.
Mohammed bin Nayef, who has since been disappeared, who is an American hero, who was given a medal by the CIA for saving American lives, is that there are questions about Jared Kushner's role right at the beginning of the Trump administration in actually helping Mohammed bin Salman get his job as Crown Prince. That could be deemed to be not only against American values, but against American national security. But MBS was not Crown Prince when Trump came into office and now disappeared. That could be a very big reason why Mohammed bin Salman might want to pay Jared Kushner to billion.
If Kushner is advising a potential future president while holding financial commitments from a foreign leader, you have a direct pipeline from one palace to the Oval Office. And the pipeline doesn't need Congress or the State Department's permission to work, it just needs a phone line. Historically, skipping out on FARA registration has landed people in actual legal trouble. Paul Manafort, for example, caught heat for failing to disclose lobbying on behalf of Ukrainian interests. Others have faced indictments, fines, and full-on trials. The reason the law exists is because secret influence is dangerous. It lets another country shape US policy while everyone thinks the decisions are homegrown. Wyden and Raskin seem to be worried about exactly that. They've pointed to the overlap in Kushner's life now. He's not just a fund manager pocketing management fees from a giant foreign investment. He's also tied, personally and politically, to a man running for president and has old back channels to a foreign leader with huge stakes in US foreign policy decisions. That's three hats at once: businessman, political advisor, and what some are calling an unofficial foreign envoy. All without being elected, confirmed, or even publicly accountable. And for everyday Americans, it's not just the legal technicalities, it's trust. If you can't be sure whether someone is giving political advice based on what's best for the country or what's best for the billionaire funding their business, then the system doesn't work. Meanwhile, Saunders in Iowa or Lopez in Florida have no clue these conversations are happening behind designer curtains. The nightmare scenario is that policies on arms sales, Middle East alliances, or oil price strategies get shaped outside official channels. We like to think major diplomatic moves are hashed out in rooms with flags and translators. But when private money gets mixed in with political advice, those moves can start in a WhatsApp chat between friends. And if one of those friends wires you $2 billion, it's not hard to guess whose opinion might weigh more. What's taking shape isn't just a Washington ethics headache, it's an entirely different tier of influence, one that crosses oceans, skips the voting public, and pretends the rules are for other people. And if you think this stops at private phone calls, wait until you see how it bleeds into large-scale business projects that can reshape whole skylines overseas. Picture this: a 99-year lease to remodel one of Serbia's most notable government-owned buildings into shiny Kushner-branded luxury condos. Not a 5-year deal, not a 20-year deal, 99 years. That's basically a forever stamp on Belgrade's skyline with Jared's name on it. The project's price tag? Around $500 million. And while officials keep calling it a chance to bring in a reputable American company, there's one small detail they tend to skip over. The financing isn't remotely American. Reports say about 99% of the cash is coming from foreign investors. That hasn't exactly gone down quietly in Serbia. Protests have popped up with people holding signs about selling off public assets to private foreign-backed projects. The property in question is no rundown warehouse. It's in the heart of the capital, a place with historical and symbolic value. Turning it into a playground for the global rich fits perfectly into the Kushner real estate formula. Prime spot, politically friendly local government, and a funding structure that heavily relies on foreign sovereign money. Critics say this isn't happening in a vacuum. The foreign ties behind the Serbia deal connect back to the same circle Kushner cultivated in the White House. It's not just the Saudis. His map of ventures looks like the same map of political favors and partnerships from his time in office, only now every stop comes with a new business label slapped on it. Serbia is just the latest add-on to a portfolio that's quietly becoming a foreign-funded empire. Look at the rest of the list. In Dubai, his firm is pitching itself in the booming real estate tech market, again, surrounded by investors with close ties to Gulf leadership. In Brazil, of all places, Kushner-linked money is in the rollout of a UAE-backed fast food chain. And in Israel, there's involvement in a car leasing company tied up with investor pools from the same part of the world. Different countries, different industries, but the same kind of deep-pocketed foreign sources. Every one of these places connects in some way to regions where Kushner had influence while working in the Trump administration. When he was in the White House, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Israel were core to his Middle East strategy. Now they're core to his investment pipeline. So maybe his idea of diversification isn't about industries or markets. It's making sure there's a foreign royal family involved in every time zone. And there's another pattern that doesn't look great if you believe in rational market forces. Senate Finance Committee findings point to foreign investors in Kushner's fund not making actual profits on these ventures. Yet despite the lack of returns, his firm has still been taking in tens of millions in management fees. That's like buying into a restaurant franchise that keeps losing customers while the owner still pays himself a bonus because the chairs look nice. In the investment world, fees without performance raise eyebrows, but in politics meets finance, they double as a potential influence retainer program. What's odd is that plenty of these overseas projects don't seem to align with standard business logic. You usually see investment follow profit opportunity. Here it's more like investment follows personal ties. It's as if market risk is irrelevant because the real value isn't in the deal itself. It's in the relationship it sustains. A Gulf leader, a Balkan politician, a potential future US president, all connected through one man's business card and bank account. When you string them all together, the Serbia condos, the Dubai tech push, the Brazil burger chain, the Israeli car leases, you don't just have random real estate and food plays. You have a web that keeps Kushner in direct ongoing contact with governments that have huge stakes in US foreign policy. The money might look like investment, but the access it buys can't be tracked on any quarterly report. And that's the point critics keep hammering. These aren't just construction sites or corporate logos overseas. They're potential back channels dressed up as business ventures, running parallel to official diplomacy. The public gets no briefing and Congress gets no oversight, but policies back in Washington could still be moving to the rhythm set in Riyadh, Abu Dhabi, or Belgrade City Hall. Connecting the dots from the Gulf to the Balkans paints a much bigger picture than just real estate hustle. It's the intersection of money, politics, and international influence with no formal guardrails in place. And if this is what's happening out in the open, imagine what's sitting in the parts of the ledger no one outside the inner circle gets to see. This isn't just about Jared cashing in. It's about foreign governments quietly steering US policy while voters have no clue. When Republican leadership refuses to even look into it, that's not oversight, that's a green light. Senator Chris Murphy called Kushner's setup a textbook breach of safeguards against foreign influence. If you think this is fine, ask yourself, what's next? A future ex-official selling FBI intel to the highest bidder? Stay loud, demand transparency, push for laws that stop this revolving door before it spins off its hinges, because if no one draws the line, someone will sell the floor too.